momentum that you create like is really important. You found a market that there's a need there. If you do stuff faster, then you could be one of the leaders in the space.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Shop. I'm Brandon, and I'm here with Victor Peña of OmniPrint International. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Hey, thank you so much for being with us today.
I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here today.
Cool. Well, I'm super pumped too, and I want to just start diving right into it if you're
Let's
okay
go.
with that.
Yeah.
All right. So, tell me about what got you into this industry in any way. I mean, this industry is vast, but there's so many other things to do. What got Victor into garment decoration?
That's a huge question, but it's going to be almost 20 years now. Can't believe it. But I looked at one main thing, and I had I guess you could call it the foresight or just the hustle. I wanted to do something different.
Okay.
I came kind of from engineering and tech background, and so a friend of mine introduced me to, I sell these digital printers in Europe. It was for solvent. And I was like, well, couldn't we do this with T-shirts? And that's kind of how it went down. And
Cool.
It was like neat. I also wanted to do something to make some money.
Yeah.
That's
always
wanted
good.
to not be broke, that kind of stuff. So
Cool.
there's like different motivators there, but yeah.
Okay. And so you could have worked for somebody,
Yeah.
but obviously you didn't. So tell me about what motivated you to start a business.
So I came from Mexico when I was 6 years old, and for the most part, typically when us Mexicans will do construction, right? That's our thing, and so I did that growing up,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to school,
Okay.
because this is tough. And so then I went to engineering school, and I started working for a tech company. Right after school, and they did right before, I don't know, a lot of people are not going to remember dial-up, but I come from dial-up, all right. But it was a transition from dial-up to high speed, and my job was to go around hotels
Okay.
all over the country and install the new internet stuff. So
Cool.
so from there is where I was like, well, I'm working for somebody. I've always seen entrepreneurship like in my family and stuff like that. And so that's what led me to, I could do something different, something new, and then do it for myself.
Excellent.
So that was the main motivator.
So I imagine, like most businesses, the beginning is very hard, very difficult. Right? Did you get what you expected in the beginning?
There's something to say about starting something. And this is going to sound rough, right? I would never start a business ever again.
That's
I would
profound.
acquire one.
You would do what?
I would acquire one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reason is you have to go through every stage, and then you're probably going to fail, or you can win, right? But the start is very difficult because you got to figure out, well, how can I bring value, and then try to find the capital to do your first thing. That's hard. And so the way I did it, it's kind of nuts. Where I flew to Korea. There's a manufacturer there that was making different types of machines, and I guarantee you they didn't need me, because they were already shipping containers of machines to other people. But I got introduced. I flew there, on a credit card. And then I said, I met with the main overseas director and the owner. And I'm like, hey, all I need you guys to do is build this machine. It's going to do this, going to look like this. And I'm going to be like your biggest client. And we're going to blow this up. And so sure enough, I convinced them to build like our first DTG printer,
Okay.
but I wasn't their biggest hit.
Oh,
At the first year or two, I would like buy one. I would buy, pretty much nothing, right? And
okay.
so until stuff started happening, and then all of a sudden, we ended up being the only machine that they made, and then we ended up, making a cool partnership where it was like the only product that was made based on our spec, and
Okay.
then that's how it ended up, um, coming to fruition at the end. But the beginning was tough because then I had to come back and pitch somebody on a machine that wasn't there on the table.
Yeah.
It's like, it would do this if you would buy it. I just
Yeah.
need you to kind of pay me first, then I'm going to deliver it and then go from there.
Okay. Okay.
So
So this was early on
Yeah.
direct to garment
Yep.
at Omni.
Yep.
And that fueled your growth for several years.
Yeah.
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 And that's where we heard about you.
Yeah.
Ryonet and Omni, we shared exhibitions,
Yeah.
at different trade shows.
Yeah.
And we probably would have never worked together technically, right? We were on different sides of the
Yeah.
coin. But this rise of direct to film, the recent, 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
can you tell us about when you first started seeing direct to film in a very high demand direct to garment business, and what attracted you to it? Did you move towards it due to knowing you just had to, or can you kind of work us through that pivot in your business?
Yeah. So I first saw it in, the end of 2020. And we were just like crushing it, that year. But honestly, at the beginning, I was very hesitant. I'm like, who wants to do transfers and all of that? It's just kind of going backwards. But then we started. I leaned into like, what value could it be for the customer?
Mm-hmm.
And so the value was like, okay, well, I could do more materials, different print locations. At that time, the feel wasn't great from like a big image kind of standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was based on like core values and the mission. I had to ignore my gut or my
really?
resistance,
Okay.
and I said it brings value to the clients, so let's do it.
Wow.
Sometimes you have to ignore yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so your instinct or your gut, right, that we talk about, like business leaders, they say, well, you have experience, you have data, you have influencers, and then you have this gut. It's just like it feels right, it feels does. So it's almost like you have to unlearn something at that point.
Yeah. And so it was all about, okay, well, we're already going direct to the product. So why go backwards?
Okay.
It was the thought process for
Right.
me.
Seem more wasteful to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, but what we ended up doing is we did a new formulation of the ink, or like our Gamut Plus line, so it can do both DTG and DTF at the beginning. And then we released a really inexpensive kit for people that already had our printers.
So a big part of Omni's clientele is your single machine owner?
Yeah.
Maybe two?
Yeah.
But on that medium size, smaller scale.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that if I'm one of your clients and you've got me all up and running on direct to garment, I'm going for 5 or 10 years. What do I do now that you're promoting direct to film?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did your clients receive that?
I think they were pumped. They were really pumped. We leaned into it. We did some lives. We did some boot camps and stuff like that, and we were kind of right there. And I didn't want to build another printer because I had just built another model of direct to garment, and that took us like 3 years, right, to engineer it. And so, but I'm like, well, what can we do like right now to bring value? We released a kit with the new formulation for like $99.
Okay.
Yeah.
To convert.
Yeah, be able to use your our DTG printer for that. We also made like a heated vacuum platen really fast that would hold the film, and it'd be like really nice and warm. And so that kind of fueled that. And
Okay.
so that was the start. Around 2021 we started doing that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what advantages does direct to film have over direct to garment? Just take those two applications. I mean, there's plenty of ways to make a shirt, right?
Yeah.
We're very heavy in screen printing here, but on the digital end, what are the key advantages that you see for customers?
That's a great question.
Okay.
From the customer's perspective, no, they didn't want to do pre-treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. So
The garment.
Yeah, they didn't want to do pre-treatment. It's always been kind of a thing that they wanted to get some improvement there. And so by not doing pre-treatment like on hard to pre-treat products, it gave them a way to leverage and sell more.
Okay.
And so now I can do hats and bags and shoes, and I can do polyesters and blends and difficult stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of fueled them.
Okay. Okay. And I've got to ask, as far as transfer, all right, I don't have to, my printer can be separate in a separate location than my garment,
Mhm.
right? So at the time of print, I'm not printing direct, so I don't have to necessarily marry it up with a garment.
Yeah.
So with that said, there's a ton of outsourced DTF transfer hubs,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And in this model, it seems like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about why somebody would choose that over printing in-house? And maybe, especially someone considering that, like, why should I buy a printer and maintain it when I can just order transfers?
Yeah.
That's got to be a question you get a lot.
Huge. It's a huge question. And look, we always want to sell equipment, right? But before the sale, there has to be some sort of value you're providing, right? So the value is like coaching somebody on when to buy and when not to buy. And a lot of times, you should not be buying equipment until you do this. And the reality is, if you don't order first, and if you don't learn how to sell, and if you don't learn how to press and provide a good product, then it's going to be really hard for you to buy that equipment and then keep it maintained, and then also market and sell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so with DTF, you're able to do that because now you don't have to have the equipment to provide an actual like retail quality product to your customer, and you can have somebody else do it. Then when you get good, then when your margins make sense, then you can do it on your own.
Okay. And when does somebody know that they've outgrown that? What key issues come up or opportunities come up where somebody says, I've been doing this for a year or two, but I'm ready to make a move and order a printer, or is it something that maybe if that fits your model that you can consider?
Yeah, exactly. There's a few different scenarios that you're gonna see. If you're like, oh man, I need my product faster because my demand is fast,
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a good time. You're actually making money.
Okay.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
You're making enough money to where it makes sense for you to have a machine and then go from like maybe operating it yourself to have an operator run it. That's also a good indicator. And so that's how you can slowly grow it to where you don't have to, really kill yourself to pay for something without you selling it first.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. So over the years, you've probably worked with, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of new entrepreneur business owners, people who wanted to get going. Some turned out successful, some did not, right? Most businesses fail.
Yeah.
And so that's a reality. And so do you have any tips or success factors from people who you've seen prosper versus people who didn't quite make it? Is there any common skills or otherwise?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the and we've had a lot of success stories with customers, and we've seen a lot of people that fail, right? Um, but you're gonna fail if you don't market. Number one, you know, you're also gonna fail if you don't sell.
Okay.
And so those two main points are very important because in our industry, um, there's a lot of creative people that do great work.
Yes.
Uh, and so somebody told me once, they're like, I'm not in this for the money. I'm trying to just do some really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to like create a brand. And but they didn't have any money, you know. And so if you don't have the cash flow coming in to get your ideas out, then it's tough. And so the thing is that you have some balance sometimes from creatives to business owners when they make that shift and they can do both. Those are the most powerful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, can you, okay, is, okay, the myth that direct to film is easy. Okay. Help us understand if that's correct or not.
Yeah.
It's push button.
Well, I could tell you this. Anything that you do is going to be way harder than you thought.
Okay.
Okay. And it's going to take longer than you thought. And it's going to cost more than you thought. That's the reality. And DTF is no different. And so, if you're thinking about, hey, I'm gonna get this, and it's like no big deal, it looks cool online. You gotta have like the backup. You gotta have the support. You gotta have quality product. That's just par. And then now you have to do all of your investment of time to figure it out, and then see where you're gonna be really good at it and become an expert. So that's where that learning curve comes into play with DTF and anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now rewind back to when you were starting your business, because a lot of our customers, right, they're right in that that time where they're considering doing that, and that's a scary situation,
Yeah.
right? To lean into it full time. Um, what did you learn the first year or two that you had no idea that it would occur, and then also on the second part of that, um, growing your business. Obviously, you've seen growth over the years. Some years higher than others. You've had to add to your team,
Mm.
right? So it's not just you and Victor's doing something, but it's also
Yeah.
this whole other team. And now Victor is a business leader. Can you kind of give us a few things that just kind of come to mind about the first 5 years of a business? Maybe
Yeah.
things that you would never have done again. Just kind of to
Well, first off, I would have probably figured out a way to acquire a business that was already 3 years old.
You said that earlier.
Yeah.
So that's something on your
Yeah.
that's definitely in your mind right now.
Yeah. No, it is just because, or partner, right? Because if you could skip the first phase, okay, the first phase is like, what do you do, right? Like, does anybody want it?
Okay. Okay.
So
The
if
value you're bringing to
Ye-
the world.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then figuring out what that value proposition is, uh, and doing that as fast as you can, so that you're able to move to the next phase. Once you figure out, who wants your product, who's going to pay you for it. Um, technical word like you have some sort of product market fit means, the people that you think in the niche, they're going to buy it. They buy it, and they
Mhm.
actually pay you money, and it wasn't your grandma,
Okay.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you can move on to the phase of like who you do it with. It's like the what you do, and then who you do it with is the next phase. And because that way you can start figuring a way to scale sales, scale marketing, some bring some cash in. Because
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, you're like living hand to mouth
Mm-hmm.
the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Some of the things I would have done different is like try to speed up that process.
Is that like a momentum, or is that a
Well, that's a great point. So momentum that you create like is really important, and it does come a lot of times from speed, right? But it comes from like you found a market that there's a need there, and so you could, if you do stuff faster, better, then you could be one of the leaders in the space.
okay?
You know,
There's
and so
always room for the best. Businesses go through like an evolution, right?
yeah,
First you're in there just doing everything,
yeah,
and you're running around, and you're going at lightning speed because
yeah,
you're going at Victor speed.
yeah,
There's no communicating to anybody. You don't
no,
have to ask for approval. And that's a speed that some people stay in and they never change. They try to change, they try to scale it, build processes. I'm sure your business has gone through multiple evolutions.
yeah,
But where in that 20 years is it?
yeah,
Where in the 20 years did you think was okay, I have two questions. Where in the 20 years did you have the most fun? Like literally the most fun.
yeah.
And then the second part of that is when were you the most challenged and closest to giving up? Those
Mm,
two those are very two different points.
yeah.
Do you happen to know what those times were?
Man, those are deep. Those
Yeah.
are deep. Yeah, those are deep questions. Um, honestly, I always tried to have fun at the beginning. Um, I think you have less fun later sometimes because you're like dealing with different things.
Mm.
And so I think I had more fun um, when it's like smaller team, everybody, you're hustling together, and there's like you know no HR,
Okay. Okay.
right? Um, and you're like selling a whole bunch, and you're making a lot of value in the marketplace for your customers, and then you see the customers like some of them like become millionaires, and you're like, oh man, that's my product they're using.
We say it around here a lot, that it's pretty cool that we're a part of a business that sells products and services and education and things to other businesses, and then they make money and prosper and everything. That's a pretty cool thing,
Yeah,
you know. Um, okay. And then on the flip side, so you always tried to have fun.
yeah.
I'm sure you've always had fun every day. But what
Yeah.
about the worst? Can you kind of take us to like when you thought that the towel was to be thrown in?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Man, there's been many of those.
really?
There's been many of those throughout the years. I think like COVID was a good one, especially at the beginning.
Mm.
Um, and so, and hey, you got to shut down.
Mm.
And we sell like commercial equipment to print shops. And who's going to think about buying machines when like the world's melting? And we were like, all right, it's dunzos. And so what we ended up doing is we essentially like did the biggest live Zoom. This was uh, April 2020. So what we ended up doing is we did there was a live where we just did like thousands of people on. Uh, we even had Ryan on there, by the way.
Oh,
It was
cool.
his first, um, I guess his first event that he did with us back then. And all we did was let people know what they can do to still make money during COVID. And then we did, I had all these leaders from companies come on
Mm-hmm.
for 8 hours. We get tired from a 30-minute, 10-minute Zoom right now. We had 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and we did business, marketing, sales. We did like a huge boot camp. Uh, and so that revitalized people. Um, there was no offer, it was free. There was no back funnel, none of that. I didn't do that till the second one. Um, and so from there, it was like, okay, well, we can. There's something here where we can do this. And then we we were already making ink, and so we repurposed the lab. We did a formulation of sanitizer and a brand in a week.
Cool.
And so then from there, we took it to the local authorities and donated it. And then we sold a ton of it because we were essential at that point.
Very cool.
Yep. And then we also had a ton of cotton, a ton of T-shirts, and we made masks out of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's one of the points where I'm like, oh man, like we're like gonna die, but then we came out way better.
And then how did the business grow after that?
I think 2020 was our biggest year, and we got a lot of awareness. People are like, "Oh, these guys are good." One of our core values is being experts, and so we the only way we were going to actually do something great is if we had like the highest quality prints, at the lowest cost back then. That was like our main reason why we were actually able to outsell some of the bigger brands, because we had kind of those value propositions, right? And so then we leaned into the educational side of things,
Which your business does a lot,
yeah.
right? So when you look at the stuff you're marketing, you guys do lean heavy into business leadership,
Yeah.
Motivation, things
Yeah.
like that. Why do you do that? What's so important? I don't think the industry does that enough.
No.
Like clearly, there's a lot of training and classes and things around how to make things, how to work the equipment, but there's not a ton on how to grow your business necessarily.
No. And so the short answer to it is like I needed it.
Okay.
So if I would have learned the things that I know now, I would have probably been more successful, guaranteed been more successful getting those educations. So then also motivation. We all need to get motivated, you know. And so it's kind of a hack. I needed motivation myself. So how can I do it? Motivate others.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. Okay. So you've learned a lot more about screen printers over the years,
Yeah.
right? And other application, I mean, direct to garment, direct to film, you got vinyl application. There's many ways to get, to embellish garments.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see DTF sitting in that bucket of tools? Is it complementary to screen printing? Is it a one and maybe the other? How is it received overall?
That's great. That's a great question. I think we're just starting on the cusp of like acceptance in the screen print world.
Okay.
I think where there's a lot of value is like I would rather have my press do a whole like huge quantities, full color stuff, with low quantities. I could do it on DTF.
Mm-hmm.
And then now the feel, and if you do the artwork properly, it's nice, and the end customer likes it. And so, so those are some of the things that I've noticed. I've noticed a lot of screen printers leaning into also ordering them in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then they just press them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when people talk about DTF versus screen printing, especially 4 years ago and then every year since then, it's very much I don't like the hand or this and that, but all the changes that have been made I mean, nowadays it's like I'm feeling things, I'm getting tricked myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's screen printing or DTF anymore in a lot of ways until I feel it or get super close. So if we get to a time, which if we're not there already, that you don't really know the difference, then isn't it going to only be on what's easier, what's cheaper, what's better for the environment? I mean, these are the things that if the result isn't different, then what's the cost of that? How easy is it? What equipment do I have to buy? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Well, think about it like this too: is the consumer, the end users, is actually going to wear the product. I mean, a lot of the times they don't care how you make it.
I'd say majority they don't.
Yep. And so now it's going to be like, okay, well, you're going to have to find the other value proposition,
Okay.
Versus like, oh, I made it this way or I made it that way. That's why you should pay more or less,
Okay.
you know? And so it's all going to be driven there by mass consumption, in my opinion. And then from there, once you see like, okay, well, Nike, Adidas, and all these big brands, that's how they're doing it. Um, and you could see it. Always at the my wife makes fun of me because I'm always like at stores and stuff, and I'm like grabbing, oh, how's this, dude, there's so much DTF out there,
Yes, there's more and more.
crazy.
Yeah. I have a 6-year-old son, Paxton, and for someone like him, he didn't grow up with all the other options, and DTF isn't new to him. So when he feels a shirt that I made for him that's DTF, he says, "It feels great, Dad."
Yeah,
That's nothing different. Okay,
and
so let's say I am a 10-year screen printer. I have 2 or 3 automatics, and I do a variety of other things, to be a one-stop shop. I'm looking to diversify. I'm considering direct to film. What advice or best use cases would you bring up for that certain individual, that
yeah.
business?
I think we're gonna see if you're a big screen print shop, like you want your presses moving on big orders.
Mhm.
And like a friend of mine, um, he has a really big shop, and he doesn't want to do anything under 1,200 pieces. He's like, it costs me money to do that. And so, if you're a shop where it costs you money to stop your presses, um, and to throw in a small job, full color job in there, it's probably a good time to look at DTF because not only can you uh, train your operators really fast. They're very familiar with stuff that goes around in circles and like pressing and lining stuff up, and so their learning curve to actually apply will be a lot less. And so um, if you're already like outsourcing to a smaller shop because you don't even want to touch it, it might be a good time.
What changes to the market have you seen since the rapid growth of DTF? Has it offset anything? Has it just been complementary? Has it displaced DTG?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to DTG sales around the you know at least in the U.S. For like single unit machines and all that, yeah, a lot of people went to DTF, and so there's a lot more DTF machines being sold than DTG now, and DTG still has a good place, better feel. On demand is easier for now,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so there's going to be people still thriving there.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. You caught me with for now. So what's coming down the pipe? So basically, what's next for the next evolution of DTF? How's it leaning into automation? Obviously, being a digital option, automation is more of an opportunity.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it is.
and we don't need to get too far into technology and this massive surge into AI and whatnot.
Yeah.
But let's just say, where do you see this going? What are we going to see at the shows this year? And
I think when it comes to growing a technology or growing this case DTF, we have to be able to think about like what on demand does. Means like every piece has to be different, and the only way to do that properly is like having a good software that can control the order end to end. You know, and so that means that in DTF, you got to figure out a way to, uh, you know, properly print the right artwork based on the order. Have your order information for any operator to see it down the line when they're pressing it, so they don't press it on the wrong thing.
Mhm.
And then also like automate the entry of orders and the way that you send them to the printer, because now you have extra work of laying it out and extra work of cutting it, and
Mhm.
so you got to figure out all that workflow.
10 years ago, I would say, and we saw this a lot. There was a rise in garment decoration, people starting, and often that was either a small direct to garment or screen printing. So, we got a lot of new customers in that time frame and started a lot of shops. Nowadays, there's a lot of options to start. So if I'm faced with, I can do direct to garment, I could do direct to film, or I can screen print. Where do you think people are going now?
If I'm just starting off, people are gonna go first to what's the most inexpensive thing to do, you know? And so that's where you're seeing like all of the DTF hubs that sell the transfers. People can go there first, and they can start something out where they used to maybe only do it with vinyl or something else, or a small press. Now they're going to start there and then figure out what they do next.
Mhm. When DTF was starting rising in 2020, 21, a lot of the resistance to it was there was health resistance. And so I do want to ask, like, where do you see that now? Let's say someone's using a direct to film in a small office or a bedroom or a garage at their house. Um, could you speak to that at all as far as?
Yeah, yeah. I think like you always want to have good quality USA made like products if you can, like especially like inks and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You gotta have ventilation. All our packages, you gotta have like a purifier that filters out the air. All of that's important if you're doing it in a closed environment at home. Like protect yourself all the time. Uh, Picture that you have a baby on top of there, you know, and what
Mhm.
would you do,
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, and because I've seen some shops where there's nothing, and it's like you see all this smoke everywhere,
Mhm.
and the operators are in there, But yeah, definitely, always protect yourself there in any shop because at the end of the day, a lot of on the printing world, there's like everything under the sun that you use to chemical wise to clean and to use, and so there's always something.
You were mentioning that we have a lot of screen print shops all over the country that are ordering in their transfers. And clearly that's a great uh, model,
Yeah,
being
100%.
easy to ship. It gets rolled up. It gets put in a little poster container, whatever those box,
Hmm.
whatever it's called. So let's say someone out there is doing that and it's going really well. What comes up that makes them think maybe we should bring it in house?
Yeah, one of the benefits that I saw early on, when we first released like the DTF kit for our FreeJet DTG printers, we started seeing people printing for others. So they print their sheets, and then they started like making money by being the little hub in their city.
Yeah.
And so they already have the equipment at that point. But when it comes to like DTF, um, what happens is you start becoming kind of like, if you're printing quality, and then you start showing people around in your area that you can do it like right now, and
Hmm.
and it's nice, then you can start doing service for others, and that kind of helps keep your things going.
Yeah.
Yes, it's lower margin maybe,
Hmm.
but it's a good way to kind of get some income, and it's a good way to um, put in your higher margin orders in there, and then now you have kind of a balance, a different line of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good time to add in your own equipment. Like um, the other thing is, look at if you're already ordering from anywhere. Look at what it's costing you to order versus what it would cost you to have your own machine, because it's a good time to move to your own equipment once you're at a certain threshold where you can make more money. and so you could let the math do the job of pointing you in the right direction.
Okay. Speaking of how much this stuff costs, so a lot of equipment's out there. A lot of hubs are fully, their capacity is through the roof. Some of these hubs have 20, 50, 100 printers going. That's driving some of the cost down, correct? I mean, overall, and
Yeah.
there's a pricing war going, and so do you see that evolving further? Do you see that race to the bottom, or do you see the something correcting itself in that industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, I know how much stuff costs, um, and so I think that at the end of the day, um, whatever business that you're in has to make some money, um, and so maybe on the short term, it's going to be a race to the bottom for like customer share,
Hmm.
market share, but at some point, prices have to stabilize. Otherwise, you have like a situation where nobody's making anything. And so what happens? Like quality goes down,
Hmm.
or just like service
Yeah.
goes down. You have to save somewhere.
And what's the learning curve on something like this? So I've been ordering transfers for 2 years. I'm to a volume that the ROI makes a lot of sense. I've put it into the calculator and I can save 60% on this stuff. Um, Now a machine shows up. I uncrate it. I get it all boxed up. Am I good to go?
Man, you're not good to go. You're only good to go on when you're pressing your own stuff because you already been doing it. But I think when you get a new piece of equipment, um, like the number one thing that you should do is lean into someone coming in and installing it, and then training you, and then if you can, pay for advanced training. Advanced training is not like setting up your machine and like turning it on. Okay, cool, it moves.
Hmm.
It's more like, all right, now this is the business of printing your own stuff and printing for others. And a lot of times you think that when you buy your equipment, it's going to teach you how to do business and it's going to teach you everything that you need, and you're going to figure out how to do things like super fast. But you're not. The only way to shortcut it is to pay for somebody else's experience and try to bring them in. So I would recommend that highly because you already spent, 25, 30K on equipment. Um, Try to get somebody in there to actually show you how to do it. And then that way you could be a great fulfillment center for yourself and a fulfillment center for others. And then that could be the difference between the guy down the street
Hmm.
being cheaper
Hmm.
and you being a pro.
Okay.
You know, when you're a pro, what happens? Like you print stuff, it looks great, and then you actually deliver it, and you're not up all night.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would recommend for somebody that's starting because everything has a learning curve. And what I've noticed is if you could pay for access, there's way more benefit for you on the back end.
Excellent. All right. And so, what advice would you give businesses right now going into 2025 with everything, from inflation to uh, finance not being available to, just the economy the past few years, rising costs, revenues harder and harder to get, coming out of, the blast of all the stimulus after COVID. What are you thinking about, and what advice would you give others to think about here going into 2025?
Yeah, I mean that's a deep question. I think that there has to be some sort of centering that you do to figure out like, okay, well, why are you doing something? Because that's going to be like a big driver. How are you investing in yourself to be better, get better? Um, and then what opportunities can you look for that you can change into, and see where the tide is, because they're you know if you could find like a niche, if you could find something where there's rising interest, and not interest rates, like there's rising interest in what you want to do, then that'll be really good because you can ride another wave, right?
Yeah, nice. And in a world where you can get a few people who have a good idea of doing things, and they can use all the tools nowadays, and open to, I think it's easier now to research and learn things than it's ever been. The accessibility to information and how to do things really well. What How does a business stay competitive in that, especially one like the 20 years in?
Yeah.
Ryanet's 20 years in, so we match you there. What do you think businesses have to invest in and do in order to stay competitive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's still going to be like, uh, who's the next round of team members? So invest in the people. Also, the innovation as to what you do to bring value in the marketplace. What is that? And if you could lean into that more and more, then I think you'll be fine. Um, but yeah, definitely, business is challenged, all over the world now, and so now you gotta just lean into, what are those things that you could do different and try to set yourself apart.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much
No
for
problem.
chatting with me, and
Yeah, thank
thanks
you.
for having your team here to help us become better and more confident on direct to film. And we're super excited carrying Omni DTF and seeing the successes of not just complementary to a screen printer, but also those new avenues that it opens up. So
Yeah,
thank you very
definitely.
much, man.
Oh, it's amazing to be here. I'm really excited about our partnership and what we do in the future. I think it's going to be a great thing for the industry as well. So, thank you so much for having me here.